Alright guys, and now we are back with a showdown between the Skaven, who shall be led by a warlord atop his mighty Bonebreaker, and Norsca, who's going to be helmed by Throg the Troll King, and it looks like he does indeed have an entourage of trolls, which is going to be pretty wild. Definitely some good line of sight blocking for the trolls to hide in this map, and yeah, let's see what happens. So as far as the build goes, this is actually my Norsca, or anti-Norsca build for the Skaven, but typically it works very well on open field maps, or maps that have, relatively open field areas where you can kind of force engagements, but I just couldn't remember what this map looked like, and I was like, it's probably like relatively open field, there's not going to be too much obstruction, but little did I know, this is a map I haven't played in quite some time. It's going to be severely punishing to my artillery build. So you can see there's a massive shroud right here. So Norsca can basically like advance up and through the trees and have most of their army shrouded. Now, I can still kind of shoot through, but for the most part, it's going to substantially mitigate my effectiveness of the backline artillery. So I have two of those bad boys right here, and then I tried to get a better line of sight here because I wasn't sure if he was going to deploy in this area or back here. So I wanted to kind of spread my forces a little bit, make sure I could at least get some of the Warp Lightnings getting a direct line of sight. So these ones are going to be shooting downtown here at the Norscan trolls, and hopefully they'll get some value. But as far as the front line goes, it's going to be pretty pitiful. It's just going to be Skaven slaves with spears, which are the glorious chaff unit. These guys are rocking a whopping 25 melee defense, which is so good for the cost. I mean, these guys hold firm with their rock hard 55 leadership right now, but I believe their base leadership is like in the 30s or something. Let's actually go ahead and double check. So we're at 53 right here, and the base leadership is indeed going to be 35. That's what I thought. So the Rat Boy's going to be taking the beating from the Norskins, and basically you just have to drag them through the mud. You can kind of contend with Norsca in the front line if you go with the front line of Stormvermin with these swords and shields and then get some Rat Ogres, but even still, I don't think that's really going to be cost effective. Berserkers and Marauders and Javelins are really going to be able to take you apart. Wolfric with his boat is going to be able to just go crazy, just down lines of Stormvermin, and it just doesn't seem to be terribly effective. As such, I think just going Chaffee and wide is a better way to go. And I'm also going to be mixing in a Plague Priest. So the Plague Priest is pretty damn good here. Essentially, he's like a Mortis engine, but he can also drop summon. So he's a pretty big threat. And if the Norscan Javelins aren't able to focus him, and you're able to focus down some of the other big targets like Trolls and Famir, he's going to run relatively unimpeded and do a ton of work. So he really just is like spawning rats constantly, doing AoE damage to the infantry, and is really a menace in the night. We do have a Warlord on a Bonebreaker as well. Now, Skrulk, I think, is probably, I don't know, it's hard to say. If you're going with the Furnace, I don't think you need Skrulk as much. And the Warlord's a little bit more durable. He has better armor piercing, so he's going to be more resilient against some of those characters like Throg and Wolfric, and tougher to snipe ultimately. And yeah, he can also beat down Famir and characters like that, but he's also going to take a beating himself. He's not super tanky, but yeah, the Warlord is, yeah, I like him quite a bit. He has some cool abilities, escapability with the Verminous Valor, and he does some work. In the back two, Gutter Runners with the Poison. These guys are quite good against Norsca. Norsca does have a ton of lightly armored units that are very susceptible to kiting, like Berserkers and all sorts of the Marauder characters, and yeah, they're just annoying and pretty good. And the last but not least, guys, we have something a little bit fun and spicy today. So this is actually the first time I've incorporated these guys into my build here. We do have the Warpfire Throwers. So these guys, they have Discourage, and yeah, they do fire and magic damage. So I think there's a couple of units on the Norscan roster. And of course, when Norskins do get super enraged, they get a base physical resist. So having the magic can be helpful. But yeah, just going to be trying these guys out, and we'll take that adventure together and see how they do. So that's pretty much it for my army. Just heavy focus on Warp Lightning Cannons, which are going to be a little bit obstructive, but getting some initial value. So for my opponent's army, it's pretty wide. He's got Marauders and Berserkers across the entire front line, but he's also going to be going just heavy into the Trolls. Now the Trolls, if they aren't getting focused by Warp Lightning Cannons and they have a little bit of cover and they can get in there, they can beat down the Furnace. They're going to be able to pressure my front line pretty aggressively, but still pretty vulnerable targets against the Skaven, I would say, because of the Gutter Runners and Slingers, and on top of that, Warp Lightning Cannons are a very common pick in this matchup, at least for me. And yeah, we'll see how they do. There is plenty of cover here, so maybe they can advance, not take too much damage, and really make a difference, but they're also quite cheap. So 4 Trolls in total, which are going to be escorted by Throg the Troll King. He does have Marauder Hunters with Javelins, which I think are great in this matchup. They kill Hell Pit Abominations, they kill Rat Ogres, they kill Furnaces, and they can poke pretty much any other targets. I think Marauder Hunters with Javelins are a staple against these Skaven. In the back, we also have some Angry Werewolves. We do have the Maws of Savagery. These are the Armored Skin Wolves, and yeah, they're pretty decent. Anti-large, AP, regeneration, so they're going to be durable against like Slinger Fire and things like that. And, you know, a little bit of a, I don't know if I would pick them in Skaven. I don't think you need them. I think just going wide against Skaven with like Javelins and Infantry is a little bit better, but nonetheless, we'll see how they can do. And on this map, anything is possible because a lot of my anti-large, capabilities with the Warp Lightning Cannons are going to be heavily shut down. On top of that, my opponent does have some Norscan Ice Wolves, so he has some hiding in the trees over here, and I believe he has some on the other side as well. So I do see these ones coming, but the other ones, a little bit sneaky. In the back line, I do have some spears. It's going to be Clan Rat Spears defending each artillery piece. There's going to be one Rat Ogre between these two, and I believe I have another Rat Ogre up here in the hills, which is pretty essential because sometimes the Clan Rats can't quite protect these. So immediately I made a little bit of a mistake in my deployment, and the Wolves are able to sneak in there, but the Rat Ogres are going to pile in. I also do detach the artillery crew and run them back, so I'm going to lose a couple, but for the most part, the wolves are actually going to take more of a beating from the rat ogres and the Skaven slaves, and those other troops are the clan rats, excuse me. On this side, you can see the wolves are going to be charging in, just desperately trying to shut down the warp lightning cannons, but the clan rats, you know, like I said, these wolves have pretty good mass. They might be able to actually cause some issues for the clan rats with spears, but with the rat ogres here, they're just going to beat the brakes off these dogs, and it should be a good engagement. In the meantime, my slingers up in the front going to be poking down berserkers, getting some really good value against their 15 armor, and yeah, they have no missile resist of any sort. That's going to be pretty good, and the warp lightning cannons are just shooting the trolls. So I put one on each troll here. I think I put one here and one here as well. And the snare nets are now going to be going down, slowing down these forces, and I'm just going to be doing a bit of a tactical retreat, trying to kind of delay the engagement for as long as I possibly can. Gutter runners are kiting, but they do get caught up a little bit there, so a little bit sloppy on that part. But the rat ogres over here are able to chase down the doggos, so the doggos are going to be taking a pretty heavy beating from the rats, and yeah, these guys doing really good work. Rat ogres are a very, very good, you know, backline defensive unit. And in the front line against Norsca, I don't like them as much because Norsca does have javelins, and even berserkers, even though they're not like meant versus large targets, can still do a ton of damage. So I tried to roadblock him a little bit using the warlord, just kind of getting in there, just like attacking him and falling back immediately, but I took more damage than I anticipated from some javelins as well as Throg, so a little bit scary right there. But here in the middle, it's going pretty well. The Plague Priest is going to be mortis engineering all these troops. I summoned some Plague Monks who are actually killing these berserkers very effectively, and there's also going to be some mortis engine effects going down. The trolls are taking warp lightning fire, and now, you know, I can pretty much shoot everything relatively well. These two have pretty good line of sight. Granted, this one up on the hill isn't going to be quite as effective, but nonetheless, we're getting some pretty good focus fire. And here you can see that the warfire throwers are going to be roasted in there and just going after trolls. And if there is a niche for them, I guess they're pretty good against trolls, because trolls are weak to fire and have really low leadership. So the fact that they do contaminate, which lowers leadership instantly, and they have fire damage, is really going to be super punishing to trolls. So these guys just going to be turning about face, waddling, and going to be switching onto some of these marauder hunters with javelins here in a moment. We do have some trolls coming back, but thankfully all of my Skaven slaves are also, you know, the spear variant, so they're going to be a little bit more effective here. In the back line, the hounds do try and get in a bit, you know, getting a little bit desperate back here. These guys are trying to get onto the cannons, really trying to shut down that pressure on Throg and some of these other characters. And the rat ogres are just doing a great job, and I've also fallen back with the Bonebreaker. Here you can see the warfire throwers are going to be shooting into the side, but it looks like they're actually killing like more rats than they are anything else. But nonetheless, they're going to be shooting into marauders. As far as kills, they're up to 19, which I suppose isn't bad. And Throg is going to be getting focus fired by pretty much all of the warp lightning cannons. So I can see him just kind of bum rushing into the back line here. And the javelins and trolls are going to be scooting up, but I'm just spamming summons with the Plague Priest, just doing my best to get into the back line. Now the trolls, like I said, a pretty good answer against furnaces, and you can see it's taken a little bit of damage from the trolls, but with supporting elements and, you know, just some of these rats nearby, plus the warfire throwers just kind of roasting off all the trolls, it's been pretty effective. So Throg Daddy's going to be coming back here, getting blasted in the face by the warp lightning cannons. Now the Bonebreaker Warlord and the rat ogres are going to be piling in to kind of pin him down and just gorilla pound him right here. So we're going to see how that goes, but it looks like Throg is in a little bit of trouble for, you know, absolutely with those warp lightning cannons blasting him. Up on the hill here, it's getting a little bit compromised. Some of the dogs have eventually gotten onto the warp lightning cannons. My spears have just been pulled thin, and some of his infantry as well, including some marauders, and I believe some of these Moss of Savagery were able to get onto the warp lightning cannon and shut it down. It's a little bit tough losing that, but for the most part, I think we're in a pretty good position in regards to the balance of power, especially since we've been able to get Throg back here. The Warlord's doing a good job. I also pulled back the Plague Priest, who isn't like insane in melee, but I pulled him away because he started to take a lot of damage from trolls and javelins, and at this point I'm doing kind of that secondary wave where once your front line collapses, you fall back and you just spam summons and you try and hold the Norscan advance. There are going to be a couple javelins coming in, some marauders as well, but Throg Daddy's in some trouble, and the Warlord with the Bonebreaker just, oh man, Bonesaw. That's what I was trying to remember. There was like some pun, I was like, not pun, but reference I was trying to think of, but it was like totally like Bonesaw's ready, Bonebreaker's ready. So the Bonebreaker gets in there and smashes those guys. Some of the Ice Storm Marauders and more elite troops are going to be jumping into the back line. There are some Norscan Ice Wolves, but if you're playing a Warp Lightning Cannon build, you always need to be super diligent about putting your Warp Lightning Cannons on guard mode, which means they don't scoot forward. And on top of that, you need to make sure that your spears, like once you defeat something, the spears will chase them off. But you always need to pull them back. And I'm a little bit sloppy with that, but I've been getting better, and it definitely changes the game completely. The Warfire Throwers here are going to be getting chased down by the Ice Storm Marauders, so a little bit of a tough grab for these guys. As far as kills are up to 32, but they've done an okay job against the Trolls. At the very least, they do tank their leadership because they're going to be taking fire damage and also being contaminated, which is quite good. The Bonebreaker is going to be going on an assassination mission after the Shaman Sorcerer with metal right here, popping Verminous Valor to knock him over, just trying my best to beat him down. And here the Gutter Runners with Poison are actually still alive, so they're kiting back and really picking apart these Berserkers. And yeah, I think these guys are just so good for backfield control. Once Norsca or any other faction does get into your backfield, being able to poison them and kite them and really just drag them through the mud is super essential. So the Moss of Savagery were able to defeat the Rat Ogres and also kill my artillery piece up on the high ground, which I think is one of the main reasons why the balance of power was like more even and wasn't like more lopsided. But at this point, we were able to get some heavy Warp Lightning Cannon fire into the Moss of Savagery over there, and we're just kind of pulling Norsca apart. You can see right here the Warlord with the Bonebreaker is going to be coming back. The Furnace is very beat up, but it still has a couple summons, and this Mortis Engine, if it gets in there, is going to be doing some substantial work. And you can see in the back the Warp Fire Throwers are, they're spit roasting some of these juicy old Chaos Warriors. So as far as the leadership for Norska, he does have a Shaman Sorcerer with fire right here. He has a couple javelins, but for the most part, there's not going to be a whole lot left. And that's pretty much going to be all she wrote as the Rat Boys do advance in there and clean up shop. My apologies for that. I just got some random text. And yeah, guys, we're going to be jumping into the, let me just turn this off because I'm going to be casting another one for you guys. It's a 2-for-1. Get excited. We are here. So, Skaven, I like that build quite a bit. I think the Bonebreaker was a nice little addition. Skrulk is a little bit easier to snipe, and if he does get caught by wolves or by Skrulk, he's just going to get annihilated. But, I mean, arguably, I think in a very, like, vacuum environment, even if you just go Plague Priest with all summons and Skrulk with, like, or Skrulk with both summons, Plague Priest with just Vermintide, and then Skrulk's items are just so damn good. Liber Bubonicus, plus the Rod of Corruption are just so insanely good. So I don't know. It's hard to say. The Warlord on the Bonebreaker is pretty good, tougher to snipe, but I think that Skrulk, if used effectively in like very backline defense, is going to be a little bit more competitive. Just being able to Liber Bubonicus, like, you know, any number of characters like casters or some elite units, it's too powerful to pass up on, in my opinion. Plus, he does have Contaminate as well, which is very good against trolls. But this build, I think, I don't know, the Warpfire Thrower would be the one thing I might consider cutting, but I feel like this build is very, very strong against Norska. They can go very wide with the infantry, but if they do, you know, you have the Plague Priest, you have, you know, Gutter Runners, you have a bunch of summons to kind of hold them in place, and you can still snipe most Norscan lords or casters with Warp Lightning Cannon. So there is a little bit of a give and take there, but yeah, I feel like it's pretty good for sure. And as far as the build of my opponent, the Great Loki, the Great Mischief Maker, he does have Throg and the Shaman Sorcerer. I do like Throg in this matchup. He's a little bit of a big target, but nonetheless, he's really good against Doom Wheels and Plague Furnaces and Hellpit Abominations, because a lot of Skaven players, you know, use those type of units. This is just my preferred playstyle against Norska, but Throg I think is pretty well rounded. Fire's good. I really like the Berserkers and the Javelins. I think they're solid. They did well. They performed well. They grinded through and almost got into the back line. But honestly, I would probably cut the Norse Controls, and I would probably cut the Maws of Savagery, or maybe keep them. You can even go with regular Skin Wolves. I don't think you need like these heavy AP ones because, you know, Hellpits and Rat Ogres are very squishy. But on that note, let's actually go ahead and take a look at a build here. So we'll do it. I don't have the build saved for my Norscan guide anymore, and it's a little bit outdated now anyways, but let's actually go ahead and double check here. So, and then we'll jump into the second game, which is a really fun game using Archaon, the Never Chosen. So there we are, Norscan. All right, so I do like Throg. I mean, Wolfric's very good as well. You can go with either of them really, but I do like Throg for his AP and anti-large. And something I really like quite a bit is actually sniping Skaven Lords is super powerful, but we don't go like full in on the sniping. We actually just get Spirit Leech plus the Doom and Darkness and Aspect of the Dread Knight just to buckle off the chaff and get into the back line a little bit quicker. And from here, you can go with Champions, actually. The Champions are a little bit more durable. And Standard Marauders are still good nonetheless. I don't even know if you really need Berserkers. Like, you don't need that much killing power against Skaven, like, because you're just going to be fighting Clan Rats and Skaven Slaves. So we'll kind of fine-tune the build a little bit. So we're going to go Champions and Marauders like this. And from here, we get a couple of the Javelins. I think 3 is going to be plenty. And you need some Wolves. I think that the Norscan Ice Wolves are pretty damn good. And this leaves us with a lot of money for sure. The Miststalkers are decent. I actually like mixing a couple Skin Wolves nowadays. It's changed a little bit. But yeah, it gives you good anti-large. They're pretty good at dragging down to Rat Ogres and just like pressuring, and they regenerate. So even if they do get focus fired, at least they have some healing capabilities. And from here, it's not a bad idea to mix in like one Chariot or something, or just get a little bit of mobile pressure. But you could get like a Skin Wolf Werekin. He's not bad, actually. He's pretty good at assassinating Skaven characters. But Trolls, I think, are just going to be contaminated oftentimes. They're just going to be too low leadership, and they're pretty big, juicy targets for sure. Miststalkers might not be a bad one to mix in, but so if you fight Hellpits, you have the Javelins, and you have the Skin Wolves, and your Infantry and Throg. If you fight like a wide army like that, you have a ton of Infantry to pressure with, and yeah, maybe even getting like another like Norscan Doggo here would be pretty good. We get some like Marauder Horsemen, 600 gold. Maybe just get another Javelin unit, to be honest. Yeah, that could be pretty good. That's like a lot of firepower for sure. And you have a ton of infantry. I feel like a build like this would be pretty damn solid. So very well played to my opponent. And on that note, guys, we're going to jump into the second game. So stand by and we will see you in just a moment. Take care. Ah, yes, the path to ruinous glory is strewn with butchered remains of those who fell by the wayside. So here we are with a showdown between the Warriors of Chaos, who shall be led by Archaon the Ever-Chosen. And we're going to be facing off against the Skaven. So I guess it's like a double Skaven feature. And it's going to be Lord Skrulk. So we're going to be trying something very strange. And I don't know if it's going to work well. I do know the outcome of the game. But before the game, I didn't really know. And I was like, is this going to do it? So we have a bunch of aspiring champions. They have silver shields, and I was kind of like, okay, the Skaven are probably going to have a defensive artillery build. Let's get in there. These guys have silver shields. They're durable. Let's push them in and see if we can get to the back line a little bit quicker. So it's just kind of closing the distance with the infantry and trying to just get rid of the Skaven slave front line a little bit quicker. So we do have 4 of those guys kind of in the Vanguard right here. And yeah, aspiring champions do have Vanguard. And I actually saw a pretty interesting build with the Gobbo King. So if you guys don't know, the Gobbo King does indeed have his channel, and he's put up a couple replays, I think, or on his streams, where he's like massed aspiring champions, because for some reason he told me that they don't have caps on their units like a lot of other units in multiplayer. So you can literally have like 18 aspiring champions and just like mass Vanguard, and that would be pretty funny. I thought about doing it, but you know, that's his thing. So he's got a bunch of aspiring champion replays. They're really, really funny for sure. So make sure to check out the Gobbo King. And on that note, guys, for Aspiring Champs, we have a couple just across the map. I wasn't sure where he was going to deploy. The rest of the army is going to be pretty standard. We have Chaos Warriors, and we do have a couple great weapons as well, just in case he had like Storm Vermin or Elite Infantry. I don't know if that's necessary, to be honest, because even standard Chaos Warriors can really beat down Storm Vermin, so it's probably a little bit of a misspend there. But we're going to be going with Archaon because he's fun. He's not the most competitive choice. If you guys are playing, and you can see he's just, right as I say that, he gets like blasted. But if you are going to be playing at a tournament or against like a very serious match against Skaven, you should probably get Sartorial. You can go with Sigvald as well. He's a little bit tough to kill. You can chase down Skrulk, waddle after him, and it does its thing, but Sartorial is by far the best pick. So we're going to be going with Archaon right here in the Aspiring Champs. And then over here we do have 3 groups of the Marauder Horsemasters to deal with Helpet Abominations, Rat Ogres, all those big targets. So on that note, guys, let's get the show on the road. For my opponent's build, it's pretty similar to what you saw last game. It's going to be Skaven, Slave Slingers in the secondary line, Rat Ogres, Helpet in the back, Storm Vermin with Halberds defending it, and 1 Warp Lightning Cannon. It looks like, is it 1 or is it just 2? But anyways, the Aspiring Champions do make it in, and they're already going to start meat cleaving some of these Skaven, and at the very least, they look super cool, and they have splash attacks as well. So the Skaven Slaves are being taken apart, and they're absorbing a lot of that fire, but Skrulk and the Assassin are going to be moving in. So at this point, I saw the Assassin, I saw Skrulk, I'm like, I'm going to be pulling back. I don't want to give him those freebies. But, we have pressure all across the map. Some Hounds are going to be coming from the far side as well, and the rest of the Chaos Infantry are getting in there. But Archaon, and this is why he's just not great in this matchup, he just gets focused down so heavily by like Warp Lightning Cannons, and even like Hellpits and things like that can just do so much work. So here we're going to be getting some pretty good Overwatch fire. The Marauder Horsemasters have come from the hills, and they're going to start just throwing in on these Rat Ogres, hopefully doing some pretty good damage. And the Hounds, I think I mispathed them. I can't quite remember there, but maybe I was trying to just kill these Skaven Slaves with spears really quickly. But we are getting some really good damage on the Rat Ogres, so not a bad trade right there. Now, in the front line, the fight is underway. Chaos Warriors with Great Opens have piled in. The Aspiring Champions, unfortunately, have broken. And the Rod of Corruption is going to be going down for Big Papa Skrulk. Archaon's going to be coming in because I was like, what? I just can't hide in the shadows the entire game. But I think the Liber Bubonic has actually changed my mind right there. Now I remember exactly what happened. I was like, I'm going to go kill Skrulk, but then I saw Liber plus an Assassin. I was like, oh, well, let's actually go back in the hills. So we're going to go hide in the hills there just so we don't lose our Lord. But the Marauder Horsemen are just getting some really good focus fire. They actually kill a group of Rat Ogres, not down to the last, but they do a ton of HP damage. And from there, we're going to be using the Chaos Poison Warhounds, I think, to try and squeak into the back line. Well, that's funny because we're playing Rats and Squeak. I should have chased off the Rat Ogres most likely, but we're going to be trying to get into the Night Runners with Slingers and really cause some disruption because they are doing a lot of good work. Now, in the front line, Chaos Warriors are doing okay. We do have the Aspiring Champions providing the encouragement, but the standard Chaos Warriors are kind of being swarmed by the Rat Ogres. And the fact that I can't use my Lord in the main fight is really punishing. And I mean, maybe I should have committed to Archaon earlier and just tried to go all in instead of just like hiding and playing very cautious, but it is really, really rough when you're not able to use your Lord in these engagements. So the Warp Lightning Cannon doing a ton of work here, and some of the Rats have gotten into the back line. We are able to jump onto the Warp Lightning Cannon, so we finally get some pressure back here. We're able to not shut them down, but hopefully we can actually break them off the crew. And you can see some of the Skaven Slaves with spears. They're going to take some time to kill the kill the doggos, but they might just get terror-routed by the Helpet Abomination, which would be tough. Chaos Warriors are just grinding through some Storm Vermin on the flanks with some Aspiring Champions. We do get a nice little Burning Skull right down the Skaven pocket, which does pretty much burn off the Plague Monks, and Skrulk is now a little bit isolated, so we might be able to kind of swoop in and get him. Archaon's just going to be waiting. I just didn't want to lose my magic that early, and I basically paid almost 3,000 gold for Archaon. And you can see the Warp Lightning Cannons are still shooting at him, and I just have him hidden back here, so it's a little bit dicey. So anyways, these Marauder Horsemasters are thrown in and doing great work against Rat Ogres. Other ones haven't been brought back to the battlefield yet, so that's a pretty good little situation for me. And we do have a ton of infantry that are very healthy, so these Chaos Warriors are going to be piling in. These Aspiring Champs are cleaning up the Skaven Slaves with spears, and with this charge coming in from the other Aspiring Champions. So I probably should have Vanguarded like all 4 in the front line to get through a little bit quicker. But now we're going to be pulling in Archaon because we were able to temporarily kind of halt the Warp Lightning Cannon, I think, but it looks like it's now back online, which is going to be tough. And some of the Marauder Horsemasters are going to be throwing in, just trying to pick apart the Rat Ogres and go after whatever targets they can hit. But the Rat Ogres are really the big thing I want to focus down because they're kind of the intrinsic counter to the troops I have left, like the Chaos Warriors with great weapons and some of the Aspiring Champions and all that sort of good stuff. So we're going to be shooting downtown here, getting some really good damage. Rat Ogres down to 7 models. Marauder Horsemasters seem to be pretty solid in this matchup. We have some Chaos Warriors that are going to be rallying, but the bounce power is just so heavily in my opponent's favor, and largely due to the fact that Archaon has just taken such a beating. He cost 3,000 gold, give or take, with the items I brought, because I really wanted to go into Slayer of Kings and have some fun, right? But yeah, when you lose 3,000 gold worth almost right away, it's really going to set you behind in regards to the bounce of power. So we do charge in the Marauder Horsemasters, who aren't bad in melee. There was a very vulnerable group of Skaven Slave Slingers and troops like that, and we also were able to get some Aspiring Champions up and around the back, and these guys are now going to start beating down this artillery crew. So it's going to take some time to get the crew off. It's still confident, but I'm doing my best to try and grind that out and get back into this battle here. Aspiring Champions are are going to be moving in as well, but the Hellpit Abomination, Skrulk, and company, and the Warlock Engineer with the Mortis Engine effects are able to do pretty good, but we still have a lot of Chaos Infantry fighting. Archaon comes in with a Fireball and is able to pop Skrulk, which is very, very strong. Fireball is great against Skaven. It just punishes their Warlords. And Archaon's going to be trying to sift through these Night Runners, but they do, of course, have I believe they have the Snare Net, so they are able to snare Archaon down to 63 speed. And another charge of the Liber Bubonicus is going to be coming down, and that's just going to be devastating. From there, I mean, I have some troops left, but really with the Libra going down, I'm just not going to be able to come back. Archaon's just going to get punished. That's going to be all she wrote. So a relatively one-sided game, but I just wanted to show you guys kind of the experimentation using the inspiring champions, the uninspiring champions, or the, what the hell are they called? The aspiring champions? I just can't get it out of my head right now. But so Archaon is a pretty terrible choice against Liber Bubonicus plus like a Warp Lightning Cannon. He's just going to get killed, and with Archaon and that much gold synced, like being lost, you're pretty much guaranteed going to lose the game. There's not much you can do about it. So I think that Archaon, the Everchosen, was a pretty terrible choice, and ultimately lost me the game. The Aspiring Champion play is interesting. I think that it could work, probably just cutting the great weapons. I wasn't sure if he was going to bring Stormbringer with halberds or go with that style of play, so I just wanted to mix a couple in. But the Horsemasters were good, the dogs were good, but yeah, he was just so bad. It was so bad. Hadri's played great. He had an awesome build. He had good micro, very, very solid. It's a tough cookie to crack. But on that note, guys, let's go ahead and take a look at a build that I think if I were playing in a tournament setting and wasn't trying to use Archaon and characters like that, let's take a look at what we would actually use. So let's go to Chaos right here and find it. And yes, so the chicken is really good. He has insane missile resist. You can use him as your caster if you want to. There's a couple different ways. You could actually go with Final Transmutation, and then from there you could actually get a Chaos Sorcerer with fire. And you can put him on the Manscore, but he is going to be pretty vulnerable to focus fire. So this is actually a pretty powerful build against Skaven. You get the Fire Sorcerer plus the Warp Chicken, and you're able to snipe out Skrulk and Assassins and characters like that relatively easily with the Final Transmutation. It works pretty well. So for the front line, honestly, going Marauders is pretty good, but standard Chaos Warriors definitely pay their dues. They're a little bit more durable against like Plague Monks and troops like that, and yeah, they just do their thing. So from there, just getting a lot of Marauders I think is going to be incredibly powerful. I do like the Marauder Horsemasters. They were very, very good. And yes, they can be focused down, but they're not like super expensive. So you can already see that we have like a much more kind of wider angle of pressure. I probably wouldn't bother with the Aspiring Champions. I think if you go like mass and go cheesy and just try and have fun with like 18 of them, it might work. But normally I think that something like this is going to be a little bit safer. Now you can mix in a couple Chaos Chariots as well. The Rat Ogres are a pretty decent little answer against those guys, but for the most part, these Chaos Chariots should be able to do some work. They're cheap, and you can really just run through the chaff and clear up the back line. So from there, I'm trying to think. I used to love Forsaken in this matchup, but they have gone through a couple of renditions and nerfs and things like that, so I just don't think they're what they used to be. And on the chicken, you can probably get Plague of Rust as well. So in case you decide to you could just go with actually cut the Final Transmutation and get Plague of Rust to accentuate the Marauder Horsemasters against armor and then get the Fireball for sniping. I think that's probably going to be a little bit better and a little bit less intensive on your Winds of Magic. From there, you get a couple Poison Warhounds, I think, and could get a fourth one. You could. Like to chase off those targets. The Chariots are going to be pretty good. I'm thinking if we want to get like the Demon Spew or something like that, or maybe some like Halberds just to give us a little bit of anti-large in the front line just in case, but I don't think it's probably going to be worth it. Yeah, I think something like this could be okay. As far as the last 600 gold, let's see. We could get like one Aspiring Champion. That's not bad. We could use him as kind of like a encouragement type character in the front. I mean, they did okay in kills, but they certainly didn't carry too much weight, but I think getting one would be okay. So I think a build like this could be pretty good. You're going to be dropping Fireballs on Skrulk the entire game. You have Plague of Rust to work with these. You send in the Warp Chicken, and the Warp Chicken can just drumstick everywhere. He can run into the back line. He doesn't care about the Slingers. He doesn't care about Warp Lightning, and they have to use Rat Ogres, and if you can kill the Rat Ogres with your Horsemasters and also disrupt the other Slingers and units like that with the Chariots, are going to be pretty good. So very well played to my opponent, Hadri's. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this 2-for-1. And we'll see you guys next time. Take care.